I vividly remember being at a party when I was around 19. I was stood in the corner of the room looking around and not recognising anyone I saw. The friends I'd come with had long since left. In that moment, I felt cripplingly, horribly lonely. You might have had similar experiences, and the pain that is felt in these moments is some of the most potent on the emotional menu. Luckily, as with most problems, some philosophers are on hand to help us out. So, here are 5 ways of dealing with loneliness like a philosopher. 1. Accept that it's hard, but it has upsides. Arthur Schopenhauer was a deeply lonely man. Throughout his entire life, he faced romantic and social rejection that would drive most people insane. He once gave a girl he admired flowers, only for her to discard them almost immediately, and later write how disgusted she had been at receiving this gift. And Schopenhauer did not shy away from how difficult this loneliness could be. He recognised that we are all social creatures, and a wish to be loved both platonically and romantically is hardwired within us. Our will to live, as he puts it, instills in us a need to be valued by our fellow man and to feel romantically accepted by our desired sex. To be rejected by our social circle is to strike at the very heart of our unconscious desires and can be uniquely painful. It denies our basic need to be accepted and to procreate. However, for Schopenhauer, there is some small consolation to be found in that not being lonely is no picnic either. He regards social acceptance as forever giving up parts of ourselves to be palatable to others. To be with others, he says, is to lose a large part of what makes us, us. It is only in solitary reflection that we can reach a state of peace. In fact, he says that when we're alone is the only time we're truly free. He likewise views romantic love as plagued with problems. He views it as fickle and easy to falter, with both parties in long-term romantic pairings inevitably ending up embittered at one another. For Schopenhauer, it is a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And perhaps there is some wisdom to be gleaned here, because this extraordinarily pessimistic view on companionship provides twin comforts. First, it shows that we should not be ashamed of hurting from loneliness, and secondly, that we should not trick ourselves into thinking that the grass is all greener on the other side. For Schopenhauer, we're all in the same leaky boat. 2. Loneliness as a necessary sacrifice. Few would argue that Friedrich Nietzsche was not a lonely man. He had very few friendships, never married, and managed to alienate most of his close family. However, for him, this was not purely negative, although he admitted that it was painful. For Nietzsche, sometimes solitude is necessary to maintain and strengthen one's individuality. Dwelling in too large a tribe for too long allows our minds to fall in lockstep with those around us. This, according to Nietzsche, draws us away from a path of individual expression and striving for greatness and towards the empty comforts of societal platitudes. It is when we are alone that we can truly stop and think. We can question whether the messages we've received from our communities are helpful or harmful. We can resist being overwhelmed by our tribe and can instead commit to our own individual path. This does not mean we need to be belligerent or needlessly contrarian, but rather hold our ground in the face of societal pressures. Nietzsche recognised that this would be a lonely road for any individual to take, but remarks that it's a small price to pay for owning ourselves. For Nietzsche, the need for community runs in direct tension with the need to be both morally and intellectually free. That is, free to do and think whatever one deems best. This transforms loneliness from a mere curse to a kind of bittersweet double-edged sword. Sure, to be lonely is to undeniably be in pain, but in order to never feel lonely, we would need to be so enmeshed in a tribe that we would lose all our individual freedom. To be free inevitably leads to a certain degree of loneliness, and this, for Nietzsche, is well worth it. 3. Alone without loneliness. For the Stoic philosophers, our feelings are more in our control than we think. For them, if we are lonely, the solution is not to no longer be alone, but to let go of the suffering caused by our wish to be in company. The Roman Stoic Seneca speaks highly of the state of solitude, saying that it is the realm of deep thought and reflection. Although we are social beings, it is in moments alone that our minds can truly shine and develop. For a Stoic, the difference between loneliness and solitude is just a matter of perspective. If we see being alone as a fundamental rejection by our fellow man, if we see it as a spurning of our character and a condemnation of us as a person, then we'll inevitably feel lonely. If, however, we see it as a chance to get to know ourselves better, to engage in deep thinking, and to embrace the calm that comes with no one being around to disturb our peace, then we will relish moments of solitude, as opposed to lamenting moments of loneliness. We suffer more in our view of events than in the events themselves, goes the Stoic motto. And this applies to companionship as much as it does to worries about the state of geopolitics. If we cannot control it, then we cannot trust it to be a cornerstone of our happiness. Companionship is all well and good, but it is here today and gone tomorrow. If we can make peace with our own company, then we'll never be lonely again. 4. The pleasantries of solitude. Michel de Montaigne lost the 2 people closest to him, his father and his best friend, and spent much of the remainder of his life feeling devastatingly lonely. It was in this state that he wrote On Solitude, one of the greatest examinations of the costs and benefits of being by yourself ever written. In it, he argues that solitude can be used as a freedom from the pressures and constraints of a social life, if it's used correctly. In the public sphere, there is endless backstabbing, scrambling to get ahead, and brutal self-interest. Montaigne says that, in theory, solitude can offer respite from these less pleasant parts of society. But he gives just as many cautions as encouragements. Montaigne is easy to point out that if we spend our time in solitude not developing our virtues, then we'll still be spending time in bad company. It'll just be our own bad company. The aim of solitude is not to sit back and think how much better you are than the normal riffraff, but to spend that time cultivating your character and developing your mind. He recommends using the time to reflect, think, learn, and all in all forge yourself into the best kind of person to re-enter the public sphere, should you choose to do so. So for Montaigne, being alone is neither good nor bad. It can provide many benefits if you use it correctly, but like any tool, if you misuse it, then it can bring no benefit at all. 5. A bare necessity. Mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal famously said, "All of our problems arise from an inability to sit quietly in a room by ourselves." For Pascal, it was not solitude, but company that was the potentially dangerous influence we needed to sometimes be wary of. Pascal astutely recognised that humans have a lot of fears, insecurities, and anxieties, a fact more pressing now than ever, and that we use entertainment, pleasure, and socialising to distract us from these painful pressure points. While this is a decent short-term strategy for preserving our comfort, Pascal points out that it is disastrous in the long term. There will always come a time when we are unable to distract ourselves, when we're left alone in a dark room with our fears and have nowhere left to run. If we've never spent some time by ourselves already confronting these fears, this will be an almost unbearable experience. And the worst situation of all would be lying on our deathbed, about to pass from this world, only to realise that we never did anything that really mattered to us. In our constant attempt to escape the discomforts of this life through distraction, we ended up frittering away our whole existence and dying with a deep sense of dread and regret in our hearts. It is being alone with our thoughts that can guard against this eventuality, so perhaps we should be grateful for it, rather than lamenting our lonely fate. I hope you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more on philosophy to improve your life.